What's up, everybody? So we're back out in the shop with another daily vlog, and guys, we're gonna take this handle scale material and we're gonna put it on this knife. So what we're gonna work on today is really breaking down putting handle scales on a knife. We've done this once before. This is gonna be a little bit different with the way that I do this, so I will break that down and my reasoning behind this whenever I do that. Now, when it comes to the actual scales for this knife, these right here, these are some Micarta scales that I made about a year ago. I'm going to leave a link for that video in the description below, so if you want to go check that out, you'll see how I actually made these. This was part of the first batch of handle scales that I ever made, and I've been waiting to figure out a knife to put them on that made the most sense, and I think this is it. This is the first one of these that I've ever made. I figured I might as well have the first set of handle scales that I'd ever made on there. So that's what we're going to be doing, and let's go ahead, jump into it, kind of get it broken down and see how it goes. We're going to go ahead and start with getting these handle scales all nice and squared up. Starting with square handle scales leads to great end results, so you want to make sure that you are definitely doing this step. No matter where your handle scales come from, there's a good chance that almost all of them are off a little bit. And if you don't square them up, everything from your pinholes to glue up will all be a little off. So just make sure you spend the time to do this part right here. Of course, I made these and they were a little out of square whenever I finished them because it was my first ones to ever make. Now we're just going to take a strip of tape right here. I like to use this blue painter's tape, it's just a personal preference. But we're going to square everything up and get it taped together so that they actually stay together and even while we're doing this. And this actually keeps them remarkably even while you're going through your process of getting everything drawn out and all that. Now we're going to take and put the knife on the scales, get it positioned where we want it as an end result. And then we're going to go ahead and clamp it down, and we're just clamping over the last hole. We want to keep those first two pinholes free and clear so we can drill through them. And all we're doing right here is using a 3/16 drill bit. We're going to go ahead and drill out the 3 primary holes, and then we are going to end up doing the 1/4 inch lanyard hole after that. And I'm just using drill bits to keep them even. I didn't feel like cutting pin material just yet, but there's our 1/4 inch hole right there. Now it's time to go ahead and get the knife put back on the handle scales. I'm still using the drill bits to help with this, and we are going to draw the outline of the knife on the handle scale material, and then we're going to go ahead and mark out where we want the angle of the front end where it meets the ricasso. So where the scales meet the ricasso, that's what we're doing right there, and just making sure it's exactly where we want it and it looks good. Now it's time to cut them out on my quarter band saw. I will tell you, this is the messiest stuff I've ever used, and it gets everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And I'll show y'all some of that here in a little bit. Now I'm pausing right here so I can show you this. These little bitty pieces, when you're cutting steel or cutting things like this, these will snap your belts. So you want to make sure you keep those out of that area in your porta band saw. And whenever I cut these out, I tell you this in every video, I cut as close to that line as possible so I have as least amount of excess as possible. And this is an idea of how messy this stuff is. This is how much got on me. So I want to show y'all something. This is how messy this actually is. So we've got some up here, and you think, oh, that's a lot of stuff. And then a little bit of stuff right there. but it is right here. It is right here, there, all over this area, up here on that, back here on this stuff, back here, up here on this stuff. It's even all the way across over here. You can't really tell, but it's on this whole entire workbench as well, and all over the floor. Super messy. Now it's time to go ahead and show y'all how much I actually cut off. So that's how close I got to the handle scales, and this is purely with just that porta bandsaw. I want to have the least amount of excess to mess with later. We're just going to go ahead and mark these out on these vulcanized paper liners, because we're going to be cutting them out with scissors, which again is one of my favorite parts about using this particular material. So now we're grabbing the scissors, we're going to go ahead and cut these out. And I will tell you, you do need a nice sturdy pair of scissors. You can't just use some little cheapies. You gotta actually use some pretty beefy scissors for this, but it's still way easier. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave excess on here. We're not cutting it all the way back to that line because we'll end up shaving it back later. Now what we're doing here is we are grabbing some, now we're going to use some double-sided tape. A lot of people will do this in earlier phases, or they'll use this. So we're using double-sided tape just to tape the liners onto the scales, and that's going to help us on the next step that we're going to do. And I could have double-sided taped them together, but I'm going to be doing something else other than doing that. So we're drilling the holes, and I did drill through the 1/4-inch lanyard hole as well, but I just didn't show that on this step. So this is one of the reasons why I taped them together. This is the other reason. So we got the pins put in there and then clamped it so that we can go ahead and smooth out the front and get a good idea of how it's going to look with the liners and the scales. And I think that's going to contrast real well. The next step, we're going to go ahead and shape the front of the handle scales where they meet the ricasso. So some people will use jigs and different things to get these angles where they want them. I like doing it by eye and going off of what I think will look good in the end result. So I don't go with any particular angle or anything like that. We're going to start with 320 grit, and we are going to go all the way to 800 grit, sanding the front of this handle scales. You want to do all of this work before you do your glue up, because if you try and go back and sand on these after your glue up, you are going to scratch up your blade. Something's going to happen, and you are just going to hate life because you're going to be trying to fix things later. So just get it nice and cleaned up right now and sanded so you don't have to deal with it later. And I think that these are going to buff up just fine. Now it's time to go ahead and sand everything that's going to be glued together. We want to make sure that everything is kind of roughed up a little bit and smoothed out. And we're just using 320 grit for this. Now it's time to go ahead and take some acetone and clean everything that will be glued together. You don't want to spend too much time cleaning this stuff because you'll end up messing with the epoxies that are holding everything together, but just get it clean enough so that it has a good mechanical bond. We do clean each of the pins as well, because those are going to be glued to something as well. And then we go through and we tape the blade. This just keeps epoxy from getting all over the place. You can clean epoxy off a blade after it dries with acetone. It cleans just fine. But because of the finish that's on this, I don't want to mess with that later. And that is the only amount of area that we're going to have any chance for epoxy to squeeze out onto. I don't really tape all the way up to the area where it meets the ricasso. I just like to leave a little bit of a gap. And we're using our JB Weld 5-minute epoxy. I will probably be going to J-Flex epoxy after this, but for right now, this is doing its job, so we're using it. And just like I say every single time, you want to make sure that you're just coating all of these things. You don't need to put a whole bunch of epoxy. You don't want to have a ton of squeeze out, because all that's going to do is create more work later. So we're just coating everything, make sure we got it in all the holes and crevices, and that's it. No more, no less. And I did end up taking off one of my gloves because I keep getting epoxy all over my clamps, and I didn't want to get epoxy all over these clamps again, so that's why I took off one of the sticky gloves. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and end today's daily vlog right here, with it clamped up in its clamps, and we are going to stop right here, and I'll tell you why. So let's recap what we've just done in today's video. We've done picking the scales, we've done squaring the scales, we've done getting the shape cut out and smoothed out, we've done gluing the scales. That's 4 things that actually take a lot of time. And I would rather take those things and break them down like I did in this video. And then on the next video, we'll go ahead and shape the handle scales. Now, whenever I just film just the handle scale section of my videos, it's about 3.5 to 4 hours worth of footage that I've got to narrow down. Whenever I do a start to finish build, and I show y'all about 1.5 to 2 minutes of just handle scales, that is condensing almost 4 hours worth of work down to 1.5 to 2 minutes. That's crazy. Y'all don't get to see hardly anything or learn anything in that process. So hopefully y'all will understand why I'm stopping here, and why we went over and we did as much as we did in this video talking about what we were doing. And then on the next video, we'll go through and we'll actually shape the handle scales. For these particular ones, I'm probably going to do them outside with one of my 1x30s. I've got, 36, 40, 60 grit, 80 grit belts. I'm probably going to shape them out there because, like I was saying during this whole video, this is the messiest stuff I will ever use. It is outrageous. But what we're going to do on the next video, we'll go ahead, shape the handle scales, get them all nice and beautiful. And then on the video after that, we'll sharpen it, do some edge test stuff, and cut things, slice things, do all that fun stuff in that video. But for this one, we're going to end it here. Guys, you would give this video a thumbs up, share this video or a video that I've done in the past that might be your favorite. And guys, if you haven't yet, don't touch that thing. That's the knife. Hit this thing. That's the subscribe button. Subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified when we finish that, do some of this stuff, do some of this stuff. Thank y'all for coming by. Thank y'all for checking this out. This is going to look awesome. Y'all have an amazing day. I'll catch y'all next time.